Supposed to be like this. When Russian President Vladimir Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine, it was supposed to be a quick smash and grab. His troops would storm through the country and take Ukraine, leaving him with a huge chunk of new Russian territory. And it almost worked. During the early days of the invasion, Russian troops managed to get to the outskirts of Kyiv before being pushed back out of the city. Then came the near-unanimous support for Ukraine from major Western powers. Suddenly, Putin found himself with a war on his hands. A war that is well past the 2-year point at the time of creating this video. The smash and grab has turned into a war of attrition, and you may think that Russia is perfectly suited for that kind of war. It has the second most powerful military in the world, and it can keep throwing soldiers and equipment at Ukraine until Kyiv finally has to surrender to the might of Putin. But is that really the case? Far from having a never-ending supply of equipment and soldiers to maintain its war, Russia finds itself on the brink of being the victim of the atrophy this war has created. Simply put, it's running out of everything. If Ukraine can hold on for just a little while longer, it may soon find itself fighting a toothless Russia that isn't even able to support the troops it has in the country. How is that even possible? To explain, we'll start with one of the main pieces of equipment Russia has used in its invasion: tanks. On paper, Russia is a tank behemoth. According to Global Firepower, which releases annual rankings of 145 military nations in order of their strength in an array of departments, no other country has more tanks than Russia. It's believed to have a stock of 14,777, with 10,344 of those tanks being combat ready. Naturally, you might assume that would mean that it can keep driving more and more tanks into Ukraine, no matter how many the Ukrainians have taken out. That's until you start to look into the numbers. In April 2024, Forbes examined the state of Russia's army and how long it will be capable of sustaining its offensive. When looking at the country's tanks, it makes the important note that Russia is capable of producing around 500 to 600 new tanks annually, which it's using to replace the tanks it's losing in Ukraine. The problem is that it's losing tanks at a higher rate than it's replacing them. In February 2024, just before the war's 2-year point, Reuters published an article claiming that Russia had lost more than 3,000 tanks in Ukraine. That was equal to the country's entire pre-war active inventory. Plus, basic math shows us that losing 3,000 tanks in 2 years means that Russia is losing 1,500 tanks annually. Yet it's only producing between 500 and 600, around a third of the amount it's losing. It's an unsustainable system, as well as one that's led to Russia having to rely on far less conventional methods of transporting its troops. Methods like having them drive around in golf carts. A May 2024 article published in Forbes claims that 2023 saw Russia acquire around 2,100 Desert Cross 1003 all-terrain vehicles from a Chinese company. Though the name of this vehicle may sound impressive, the reality is that the Desert Cross 1003 is little more than a heavy-duty golf cart. It's compact, offers practically no protection to the people driving in it, and shockingly, it's been finding its way to the front lines. That's not the way these vehicles are intended to be used. It's entirely possible to see the Desert Cross 1003 serving as a useful runaround vehicle behind the war's front lines. It can be used to transfer troops and equipment between stations, meaning the...
All right, first and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruka HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles, the GMS who I learned from. Shalom to the whole for elect preaching his word in truth and sincerity. And to you ribs, to you sisters out there learning silence and staying in order, I say to you all, Shalom. Right, so I came across this video because, like, I always say, I pay attention to the wars, supplies and things of that nature, the numbers games, but can't fully trust in those things, right? I'm going to tell you why you can't fully trust on those things. For one, right, on paper, this is sounding like, Russia's about to lose. It's about to conquer, right? We get conquered and doesn't have a chance, right? But here's the thing, man. Prophetically, Russia will come out on top. Just like it says in Genesis 49 about Gad. He said, the troop shall overcome thee, but he shall overcome at the end, right? Because the Lord is backing Gad. Not only is Lord backing Gad, the Lord's putting the hooks in Russia's mouth to be this, Soviet Union spirit return, right? So, as the book of Isaiah says, paraphrasing, when the Lord puts out you know, a prophecy should not return unto him void, meaning, what he says will be out, shall be out, right? Shall happen, right? So, you know, according to this study here, it seems on surface that Russia is losing and is going to back up, but that's not the case. Although Russia can't produce that many tanks, guess who can? Right, his allies, which are increasing in record high numbers. Right, Russia's got the second highest military. Right, and all the other nations that fall under it supply it. Right, we have North Korea. Kim Jong-un sent a whole bunch of rockets and bombs. Mind you, they weren't of the best quality, but that he's got support. He's got bullets. He's got all kinds of things. And China's not far behind, man. Before, China was a laughing stock as far as military goes, until the U.S. started making vehicles, parts, chips, and things of that nature sent to China. China then, stole those technologies and created their own. Right? You could, put a U.S. fighter jet side by side with a Chinese fighter jet, and it's identical. All right, the only thing that's missing is the computer system, which is made in the U.S. because they don't trust any other nation. Right, but let's continue on with this video real quick.
Purchase has a practical purpose. However, Forbes reports that Russia's troops are so starved of vehicles that they've taken to riding the Desert Cross 1003 into battle. The Desert Cross 1003 isn't suitable for the front lines. The vehicle weighs just 1.5 tons and has an 85 horsepower engine, with no heavy armaments or armor to protect the crew inside. For those reasons, it becomes easy pickings for Ukraine and its drones. Several reports suggest that Russians riding these golf carts have been shredded by drone fire. One such incident saw the Drone Strikes Company, typically a support branch for Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade, spot a team of 7 Russian soldiers riding a Desert Cross 1003. After briefly monitoring the Russians from the air,
it's a whole different kind of fighting, compared to World War II, right? These drones are operated by men behind a computer. So the scale, of the fighting has changed. Right? We're going to see things that we've never seen. Right? They got Slovakia. They've got robot dogs with guns on them, right? They haven't deployed those yet, right? They have humanoid robots. They haven't deployed those yet. They're probably worth a lot of money. So you're gonna end up seeing these things, man. Most likely.
the strike drones company concluded they'd be able to do little to defend themselves from a drone attack, so it launched one. All 7 Russian infantrymen were killed in the attack, and worse yet for Putin, the entire thing was recorded as it happened by the drones before being uploaded onto the Telegram social media network. But let's come back to tank numbers. Though Russia is only building enough tanks to replace about a third of its inventory annually, it's still able to send more tanks into Ukraine. That's according to Henry Boyd, who's the Senior Fellow for Military Capability at the International Institute for Strategic Services. He estimates that Russia managed to put between 1,000 and 1,500 tanks into service between February 2023 and 24, which would be enough to replace the tanks it's already lost. The problem? The vast majority of those tanks are older models that are extremely vulnerable to Ukrainian anti-tank defenses such as the Javelin system. The situation is so bad, according to Boyd, that only 200 of the tanks Russia sent to Ukraine during that period were new models. The rest were refurbished tanks, some dating back to the early post-World War II era of the Soviet Union. Moscow has been able to trade quality for quantity, Boyd claims, going on to point out that it could likely sustain another 3 years of heavy tank losses by relying on and refurbishing its older inventory. However, the longer Russia relies on these older tanks, the heavier those losses may become. After all, Ukraine has the ability to take out tanks en masse. It's proven that already. Sending older tanks in after new ones is simply a recipe for the country to be able to destroy more of Russia's inventory. That may be why we're seeing some Russian troops resorting to driving unarmored golf carts around Ukraine. Their tanks are being destroyed at such a rapid rate that there simply aren't enough to go around on the front line that stretches for around 600 miles. Still, perhaps it's not quite accurate to say that Russia is running out of tanks. It still has plenty of Soviet-era tanks, such as T-60s, in its stockpile. Instead, it's more accurate to say that Russia is running out of modern tanks that can actually be effective on the battlefield, forcing it to rely on older and outdated models that are becoming increasingly easy pickings for Ukraine. Of course, having to dig deep into these stockpiles also creates a problem for Russia in the future. If it wins the war in Ukraine and then decides to turn its attention to another country, such as Macedonia, it will need to spend years replenishing its tank supplies before it can launch another assault in the same vein as the one it's launched in Ukraine.
Here's the thing, though, right? That's why we serve a real all-powerful God, man, Yahweh, right? Because let's say hypothetically that Ukraine, U.S., UN destroys half of all the tanks, military artilleries, and all these other things, right? He still has a whole shit ton of nuclear firepower, which the Lord could make him use at any minute. This is Daniel chapter 2, verse 20 and 21. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons, right? He could, seasons and times could mean literally, seasons and times, but it goes to also mean tides of war as well, man. A moment in time. So, like, although on the surface, Russia might look like it's losing, right? The Lord could send help in many ways. Not only that, he could totally, make Putin just fire those missiles at any minute, right? But we know we got prophecies left, right? The faithless will look at this and say, hey, man, something's not right here. Russia might need 10 more years to get on its feet and fight another war. No, we don't got another 10 years on this planet, man. It ain't no way. Right? Shit is heating up. And the times is changing, man. The pride of Babylon has left, man. We got same-sex participants in the military, right? The military men are weak nowadays. They're hurting for recruitment, right? Why don't they show that? Right? The whole earth is on a downward spiral, man. But Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai will make the weak seem strong. Right? It says, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removeth kings and set up kings. For example, right? Jake Israel at one point, had righteous kingdom on earth, man. Through King David and Solomon, things of that nature, right? And then he removed them and put other nations on top. Right? The Lord could do all these things. Same thing with Pharaoh. This is the reason why in Romans 9 it talks about how he hardened Pharaoh's heart. Right? He for this purpose he set up Pharaoh so he could show his power throughout the earth. Right? It says he removeth kings and set up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. Right? Right, this is Romans 9:22. What if Yahweh, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endure with much suffering the vessel of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which is Jacob, right, which he had afore prepared unto glory, right? right? Verse 17 is the one I actually wanted. Salaki, it says, "For the scripture said unto Pharaoh, even for this purpose, same purpose, have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout the earth," right? So on the surface, for the faithless might look at this and say, hey, it ain't going according to plan. The weak might leave the truth. They might say, hey, man, this ain't it. It ain't the way it's going, right? Because it ain't going the way you want it to go, right? But the scriptures clearly speak, about faith, man. The elders and apostles have been talking about Russia annihilating Babylon before it was even known on the news like that. Like people weren't even thinking about it like that. Now everybody sees it as a possibility, right? But none can understand the truth, man, unless you were taught it. This is Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. See, faith goes a long way, right? Verse 2, for by it the elders obtained a good report. Why? Because they were talking on things that, might have not been popular, things to say, but they were the truth, right? Because they believed in the scriptures. They reported it. While people looked at elders and people teaching his word as crazy, now they're seeing it to be true, right? And it's a good report unto Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. Right? I pray that this lesson was edifying. It's a topic on faith and current events and how things play out. May not be the way you wanted them to be, but have faith that the Lord will see it through. I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS who I learned from. Shalom to hopefully preaching His word in truth and sincerity. And to your ribs, to you sisters out there learning silence and staying in order, I say to you all, Shalom.